I the a-hole for choosing to go on a trip with my girlfriend instead of taking care of my struggling brother's son? For context, my 24 male brother Luke, 31 male, his wife Emma, 28 female, and their son Kyle, 4 male, moved to my city last year because Emma got a new job. They would occasionally ask me to watch Kyle because I work from home with very flexible hours. I personally do not like kids at all, but I was happy to do it at a time because I wanted to help them. It was not that often, maybe once or twice every 2 weeks, and Kyle was very well behaved. Now, the issue started near the end of last year when Luke decided to change careers. He was previously working remotely as well, but his new job required him to go to work as a lot more often and make substantially less money. This left them depending on me more and more to take care of Kyle. It went from once or twice every 2 weeks to around 3 days out of the week. To make matters worse, Kyle's behavior changed drastically. To be completely honest, I can barely stand a kid anymore, constantly running around and screaming while I'm trying to work, and just overall being a little turd. My sister-in-law Emma was over the other day picking up Kyle and made some comments about getting rid of some of the dangerous furniture in my house, like tables with glass edges and stuff, so that my home is safer for their son, and made a joke about baby-proofing my house because they're planning to have a daughter. This ticked me off, but I didn't say anything. The situation hit a breaking point last Friday when I was talking about the 1.5-week-long trip I was going on with my girlfriend on the 15th. Me and my girlfriend like to travel somewhere nice at least once a month. We could not the past couple months because of Kyle, but I promised my girlfriend we would go somewhere exotic for Valentine's. Upon hearing this, they got pretty mad, asking who was gonna take care of Kyle, and that I need to stop these childish trips, and that I need to take more responsibility because I'm an uncle now. I'm not gonna lie, after hearing this, I've freaking snapped. I said that their demon child isn't my responsibility, and I'm not just gonna give up my life because they did it without a rubber. It got pretty obscene from there and some horrible things were said. They left, and we are now no longer on speaking terms. My parents and Emma's parents are on their side and extremely angry at me for refusing to pull my weight. My parents said that this is my duty, and I should be sacrificing everything to help them. It honestly got me really down, and I've cried my eyes pretty much every day since seeing those messages from my family. I'm starting to wonder if I really should be taking more responsibility. Am I the a-hole for choosing my trips over my brother and nephew? Not the a-hole. Sounds like your and Emma's parents need to start doing their duty and watching their grandchild. If they're not willing to do that, all their huffing and puffing that you need to watch Kyle is just hot air. This is not your child, and you have no weight to pull. This just reeks of trying to gang up on you because you're the youngest and you're nice, and they think you're going to cave. Stay strong and keep your boundaries. As an uncle myself, the most responsibility we should be given is to tucker out the nieces and nephews at family gathering and nothing more. Emergency childcare, sure, but suddenly the third parent? Hell no. Sounds more like they think uncle is a free nanny in daycare. They abuse his willingness to help. The uncle has all the right in the world to take his girlfriend on a trip. They could have been a lot more thoughtful and could have managed to go to the in-laws for help. Sounds like the grandparents don't like to pull that weight in raising the grandkids. Not the a-hole. Stay strong in your decision. The fact that they are planning a second child with you as their childcare answer is scary. You need to make it clear that you don't run a daycare facility. Otherwise, you will have a demon child, plus a squawking baby needing diaper changes, feedings, etc. at your home during your work hours. Not the a-hole. Your family are guilting you because none of them can be asked to take care of the son either. Sorry this is happening to you, OP, but stand your ground. You're 100% right. Sounds like your brother and sister-in-law have become entitled to your help and forgotten what it's like to be solely responsible for your kid, so they've begun relying on your help. But as you so rightfully pointed out, this is totally a them problem. Your parents are probably joining in because they know if you stop looking after Kyle altogether, they'll be relied on a lot more. Also, about your outburst, yeah, maybe not the best way to react, but they pushed you to breaking point and you snapped. Also, they were being rude and unreasonable in their expectations, so I don't expect you to respond 100% calmly and rationally either. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not splitting my daughter's college fund? When my 42 female daughter's 17 female was 7, we lost her father to an avoidable accident. Due to that and a subsequent settlement, my daughter was able to have a trust fund of sorts that provided for college, grad school if she wanted, and even some left over for whatever life might bring. It is money that, if managed wisely, would enable her to have a head start in life. She knows about this, and is never taken for granted given where the money came from. After all, we'd both rather have her father around than the money. That said, life moves on, and I remarried 6 years after my husband's passing to a lovely man who has 2 children of his own, 17 female and 13 male. All of the children live with us primarily, with his children seeing their mother on vacations as she lives across the country. This year, both our girls are graduating and should be headed to college. My daughter was admitted to her dream school last year and is ecstatic about it. Her father was an alumnus, and she has this old sweatshirt of his that she kept to remind her of him. She cried so much when she got in, and both her stepfather and I were proud of her because she worked hard to get in. My stepdaughter will also be attending a wonderful school that is one of the top-ranked schools for her interests. The problem now arises with the money to pay for stepdaughter's school, because her parents cannot afford to pay the tuition in its entirety. Stepdaughter will have to take some loans. All told, she will graduate with about $40,000 in loans, which I think is still quite modest for the school she's attending, and her earning prospects post-graduation. But my daughter will graduate debt-free, and for my husband, this is suddenly a problem. He wants us to split my daughter's fund between all 3 kids, because then they could all probably have college fully paid for. My daughter won't have much left over, and will definitely need to borrow for grad school, which she has expressed interest in attending. But according to my husband, that's okay because everyone will start off on an equal footing post-college. I think this is unfair to my daughter because 1, her father had to die for this money, and 2, this is like her inheritance from him. My husband thinks that they are all siblings and she should be happy to share the money with them if it means giving her siblings a head start in life. I absolutely do not want to put her in the position of being guilted into saying yes if she doesn't want to. I've expressed all of this to my husband and he thinks that I'm being selfish, that I'm teaching my daughter to be selfish, and I obviously don't consider my stepkids the same as my daughter. Am I the a-hole for wanting to protect my daughter's trust for her as it was intended? Edited duet. Since I've seen this a few times already, both kids do have college funds but somewhat smaller because my husband and his ex got their finances in order later in life. So there is some money, but with the caliber of the school that stepdaughter will be attending, she will still need some loans to cover costs. I haven't brought up going to a cheaper school because that will be a fresh set of problems given where my daughter will be matriculating. Now for the top comments. Info. This is a difficult situation to judge as written. My question for you is this. Who has paid for your daughter's needs since you and your husband married? Has he contributed at all to her food, clothing, shelter, school-related expenses, extracurriculars, family trips, etc.? Or were those expenses borne solely by you and or the fund? Because if your current husband has contributed to his stepdaughter's expenses, I can see how he might think, I've spent thousands supporting this young woman over the years, money that could have come from her fund. Both my husband and I paid for things, because we both have careers and didn't nickel and dime in one another about who was buying what for whose kid. Not the a-hole. That settlement was for your deceased husband's children, not your future children, and certainly not someone else's. I agree, not the a-hole. The money is for your deceased husband's children, not your current husband's children. Keep your stance. This is your daughter's money from her father. The other children have money from their father. To me, your current husband is the a-hole for even suggesting it. Right? This needs to be nipped in the bud and not even open for discussion. OP. This is her inheritance from her father. It is from his death. Circumstances stole her father from her. I am not going to take away what he was able to give her. This is not open for discussion. Also, $40,000 is not that bad, and if she doesn't want that, she can go elsewhere. That's not necessarily for you to bring up, but her father should. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my son my car to pay off his debt? Let's start from the very beginning. Over 20 years ago, I divorced my then wife. I had 2 kids with her, my oldest son and my youngest daughter. I always had a very good relationship with my son. He was my one and only. At age 17, my son moved in with me and my girlfriend. I always try to get my daughter to move in too, but she refused. I tried to make it nice for us, but soon I realized that having another mouth to feed was emptying my bank account faster than I could see. I soon jumped from workplace to workplace and asked all my friends for money which I barely was able to pay back. So, I started asking my son for money. He paid for groceries here and there over the years. Then he helped me with some bills and even got a credit card on his name for us to use, since I couldn't get one due to my debt. It went well for a few years, but still my money was always on the low. I forgot to pay my car insurance for a few months and they ended my contract. So I created a new one with my son's name on it. I asked him, of course, as always, so he always knew what he was getting himself into. Soon, he moved out and moved in with his girlfriend. She was a very nice girl, or so I thought. He soon asked me to pay him back some money since now he had some credit card debt. He did the math and it summed up to around $10,000. I really didn't have that kind of money and he knew that, and he soon went no contact. He visited me and we talked normally for some time. Then he started asking me for my car. He asked me if I could give him my car so he could sell it to pay off his debts. I told him no immediately. I needed a car for my new job since it was in the neighboring city. He told me to take the train and bus and that there were cheap tickets and my job could help me get a permanent ticket. I told him that I couldn't do that. That was at the end of 2021. I told him if I didn't have the money for his debt until January of 2022, he could have a car. After that conversation, he went no contact again. January came and I didn't have the money. I really couldn't bring it up and I told him that. He asked me about my promise and a car, but I know I didn't promise him anything. I told him I still need a car. We had a long fight over the phone in which his girlfriend said that a loving father wouldn't do something like that to his son, with which she meant all the money I took from him. And with that statement, she was dead to me. I got diagnosed with depression due to the situation. I do regret my mistakes, but I think he made me suffer enough. I miss my son, but until he apologizes for treating me like this, I don't want to have anything to do with him either. I feel so torn. My daughter isn't there for me either. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole and the worst kind of deadbeat. He's worse than a deadbeat. He's racking up debt in his son's name and refusing to pay him back. There's a 0% chance the son's credit card debt isn't related to Opie's spending. I like how it's also somehow the new girlfriend's fault, who Opie thought was a nice girl, that the son doesn't want to be financially used anymore. I was waiting for why she wasn't nice. Oh, she dared stand up for her son. Jeez, you're the a-hole, Opie. I'm the daughter and my father, Opie, sent me this post so I can defend him in the comments. I won't be doing that though, lol. Please take this deadbeat to court and use this post as evidence he agreed to pay your brother back. Let me tell you something. My brother took my father to court together with a computer firm. My father bought an $800 screen under my brother's name but couldn't pay for it, so the company sued my brother. He then went to a lawyer to show him other things he's done under my brother's and even my name, things I didn't even know about. He could clear his name and is now going to court with a company against my father. Your father is a trash. I'm sorry you and your siblings have a selfish mooch of a father. Last story. Am I the a-hole for calling the police when the people I was babysitting for would not answer their phone? Hi, I'm 14 and I babysit for a few people in my neighborhood. On Friday, I was babysitting for a couple that moved into the city from the south. They're only a block from my house, so my parents were okay with me staying there until 10 as they said they would be home by 9. They did not get home at 9. At 9:45, I started texting them to see if they were on the way. Then I called my parents. My mom came over because I was getting worried. It had snowed pretty bad on Friday and they weren't answering. At 11:30, we phoned the police as I was freaking out. The police got their names and address and I guess found their license plates like that. They found them in about 25 minutes. They were at their friend's house. They called me and they were mad that I called the police. I promise, I wouldn't have called the police if they had answered my texts or calls, and my mom was concerned as well. I didn't call to get them in trouble. I was worried. But they told my mom that I'm not mature enough to be babysitting if that's how I'm going to behave. I feel kind of bad that the police made them come home from their friend's house. But I think that they should have answered the phone. What if there was something wrong with their kids? Not the a-hole. The parents were taking advantage of you. You did everything you should have, including trying to reach them, contacting your mother, and then contacting the police. You've done nothing wrong. The parents are angry at being caught out on bad behavior. Yes, this was the epitome of maturity. Opie had valid reasons to be worried. They were the jerks here, not you, OP, and not your mom. If they were responsible parents, they would have answered your calls. Or, gasp, gotten home on time as promised? Don't let them get you. Not a-hole. 1. You are a literal child. 2. They gave you an undertaking and failed to keep it or inform you. 3. You attempted to contact them first. 4. You sought advice from an adult, your mom. 5. They disrespected not only you, but your parents who were comfortable allowing you out until 10, not early midnight. 6. You had no option to just go home when they didn't show, because you were still responsible for their children. They're a-holes, and you should warn other babysitters off them. Not the a-hole OP. But for clarity, I think they only phoned police at 11:30. It then took 25 minutes for police to locate them. At the very least, it would be another half hours for them to be home because police are gonna do a quick interview there and then, before releasing them home. It's gonna be well after midnight. Never babysit for them again, OP. Not the a-hole. 3 things. 1. You said they moved to your city from the south. I assume you mean a state that doesn't get a lot of snow? I live in Canada, and when it snows here, the people who have lived here their entire lives forget how to drive. They could have been in an accident. 2. They were jerks for not giving you the phone number of the place they were going to be. Cell phones run out of power and get left in purses. They should have given you contact information. 3. You got advice from your mom. You didn't do this without thinking it through, or out of spite. You had legitimate concerns, and they were enough for your mom to agree that calling the police was a good idea. You did the exact right thing. They were upset because a 14-year-old girl was more responsible than they were. Am I the a-hole for rolling my eyes at my ex's wife when she asked me for compassion? I, 33 female, broke up with the father of my 2 children, 11 male and 9 male, 7 years ago. We weren't married or anything, but our breakup was amicable, and we co-parented on good terms for a couple of years. Then he met his wife, and once I met her, things changed. It was clear she didn't like me, or the fact that my ex and I could get along. When we met, she called me the kid's other mom, implying she was the mom, and she glared daggers in my direction when I told her I wasn't the other mom, but just the mom. She would call them her boys and say she was a boy mom whenever she was speaking to me. She tried to push my ex back and order that all communication about them go through her instead of him, and when I refused, she told me I didn't have the right. Once that fight happened, she started sending me photo updates whenever my ex and she had a day out with the boys, or if they did anything with them for a significant amount of time. She'd text me anywhere from 3 to 5 photos and say she had a great day with her husband and her children. I saved all of that because I didn't like her attitude toward me. When I tried talking to my ex about it, he told me she was trying really hard to be good to the boys, and that I needed to accept it and help her take on an active second mom role because they had trouble getting the boys bonded to her. I told him how she spoke to me wasn't acceptable, and he said it came from insecurity and that it felt like I was a big enough person to know that. While we were talking, she texted me saying I had no right to discuss her children with her husband. I showed my ex, and he told me it was just her being insecure. But this was the breakdown in our co-parenting relationship, because I didn't appreciate the fact that I was supposed to let his wife walk all over me and push me out eventually, because it was clear she wanted that. She'd get into a snit anytime she wasn't given full parental access. This meant that when she wasn't able to add her family and friends to the school pickup list and wasn't able to change with pediatrician they went to, she got upset. My ex never fought me too hard on that stuff, but she sure as heck tried to. She also hated that she couldn't take them out of state to visit her relatives whenever she wanted. She introduced herself as the kid's mom every single time we went to a parent-teacher conference, or when she showed up at a medical appointment for our youngest who has some health issues. We actually returned to court twice over this. My ex and she were told by the judge that she was not the mother of the children and did not have the right to impersonate me when it came to school or medical settings. The judge also warned that the court would not take kindly to any alienation of the children. My ex's wife tried to claim I was engaging in alienation and that the proof was in the kids not calling her mom, even though they were very young when she became their stepmom. The judge asked for proof and stated that wasn't proof. The second time, there was a documented incident of her saying she was the kid's real mom in front of them, and the judge restricted certain things she could do. She can't do drop-offs of the kids, and she can't show up to appointments for school meetings that require both parents. That decision ticked her off immensely. But the good thing is, she contacts me far less now, and that works for me. I try to make something like co-parenting work with my ex and focus on the kids. But apparently, my ex and her have been through some stuff. She found out she can't have biological children, and they were rejected for adoption. The boys have expressed that they don't like her, which I knew a little about, because my ex requested permission for family therapy for them. I consented because we already had the boys in individual therapy, but therapy is not helping to foster a closer relationship. She came to me when they had the boys, and info dumped all of this onto me at the front door of my house. I almost closed the door on her, which she noticed, but she kept talking about her issues and then told me to have some compassion for her and at least hear her out and try to help since we're both the mothers of the boys. I rolled my eyes when she asked me for compassion. I didn't even try to hide it, and I had no sympathy for her. None. I can't say I'm upset that my kids don't like her, seeing as I think it would open up the avenue for her to try harder to push me out, and would possibly open them up to being alienated against me. She got into another snit at the door, and I told her to leave. She was insulting me, but I moved away from the door so I couldn't hear her. She followed up with 10 texts that night, and then my ex told me I owe his wife an apology for rolling my eyes at her. Now, maybe I was wrong to roll my eyes at her like that. Maybe I could have been more mature. So I'll ask, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. The husband's new wife is a few Fruit Loops short of a full bowl of cereal. She is not playing with a full deck of cards. Her mental elevator stalls at the 4th floor. How is she so rude and nasty toward you, then basically begged you to get your kids to like her, whatever that means? I assume she wanted to be placated, meaning you tell them to be nice and treat her the same way they do you, which is insane in itself. Pretty much exactly what you said. She wanted them to treat her like they treat me. Only she probably expected and hoped they'd treat her better. Is this why they don't like her? I can't imagine any kids being comfortable listening to someone talk smack on their mother whom they love and have a good relationship with. Nope, not the a-hole. She spent years trying to erase you as their mother, and now that things aren't going her way, she suddenly wants your compassion? Nah. She made her bed. You don't owe her anything, especially not an apology for an eye roll. She's lucky you didn't laugh in her face. Next story. Am I the a-hole for being stubborn and refusing to move back home with my mom and telling her she chose her stepdaughter over her son and these are the consequences? My dad died when I, 16 male, was 4, and for 3 years it was just me and my mom. Life was pretty good. We were sad Dad wasn't there, and I had some big emotions about not remembering enough about him, but I got therapy and it helped. Then my mom met James when I was 7. James was a single dad to Emma, who was 9 at the time. My mom and James fell in love and they moved in together. Mom helped James with Emma, who had pretty bad mental health problems even back then. Emma wasn't easy to be around. When Mom and James would date, she'd have outbursts, all the way back when we'd meet up at a diner for lunch or go to museums and stuff together. So by the time we all moved in together, I was pretty upset. It only got worse when we lived together. Some days, Emma was fine, calm even, but other days she'd say things about hurting herself and others. Then there were the days she'd try to break a door down or smash up a room. There were a few times I told my mom I didn't like what was happening, and each time, she'd tell me we were a family now and Emma was my sister, and we needed to be there for her. When Emma was 13, she started taking drugs. Then she started drinking. Sometimes she acted less explosive when she was high or drunk, but once that wore off, she was worse. When she was 15, she freaked out one day and even though she didn't drive, she basically totaled her dad's car, broke the front door, and shattered 2 of the front windows. The police and an ambulance came, and she was removed from the house. CPS stepped in, and she was placed somewhere to help with her mental health. She stayed for a year. I was forced to visit twice a month with Mom or with James. If I asked to stay home, the answer was no. She needed to see her family. She was released, but she wasn't sent to our house at first. She was placed with a therapy foster family. She'd come to visit, but even with all the help, she was still difficult to be around, and I hated those visits. Then, after 3 or 4 months with a foster family, she moved back into the house with us. In the background of all this, my paternal grandparents were fighting my mom over me. They tried to get custody 3 times, but were denied. They didn't feel like she was putting me first, and instead put Emma first. I didn't get to see them because my mom would refuse to let us have contact. She said they'd poisoned me against my family. But all the time with Emma and James living with us had done that anyway. I don't like them. I feel like they made my life worse and added nothing good. My mom put having them in her life over my safety and mental health. Emma still lives with them, but 6 months ago, I called CPS after another incident, and they removed me from the house. I can't say much about the incident, and there's an investigation happening into it. Some other stuff is going on, but CPS and the judge agreed that I needed to get out of there. However, the judge ordered that my mom and I have at least one 30-minute phone call a week. Every time my mom calls, she tries to get me to move back in. She says I just need to tell my grandparents, and we don't need to make it official or anything. She tells me she loves me and misses me. I got so tired of her saying the same thing over and over again that I told her she put Emma before me and I won't ever move back in. When she tried to say the whole thing about Emma and James being our family, I told her they were her family, but they were never mine. I didn't care about them or want them in my life. I said they brought nothing good into my life. They made it worse, and losing Dad was already a pretty crappy start to mine. I told her losing her son is the consequence of choosing her husband and his daughter over her son. She called me too stubborn for my own good and asked me where my understanding for others had gone. Then she ranted about Emma being sick and needing family, love, and support. She kept going on like that until the 30 minutes were up, and I just ended the call. But she sent me some texts after that, and they bothered me. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. If you're happy and doing better, don't change a thing. Stay where you're at. Enjoy life. I'm way happier, and I wish I could have lived with my grandparents years ago. Not the a-hole. No child should be put second, abused, and expected to return like no harm, no foul. I hope you work on your work ethics and prepare for the adult world. Good luck to you. Not the a-hole. CPS and the courts don't remove minors from the home for no reason, so whatever happened must have been pretty serious. Add that on top of your mom ignoring your needs and trying to make you live with a psycho. Nope, you're not the a-hole. Your mom and her husband certainly are, though. My advice is to adhere to the 30-minute telephone call because it's mandatory, but block your mom outside of those 30 minutes. You owe her about as much as she felt she's owed you. That is absolutely nothing. See if your grandparents can help you get therapy and focus on building a family of people you choose and who choose you. Let your mom keep telling herself that it was okay to separate you from your grandparents and to force you to put up with more than you should have. Let your silence be her lesson. My grandparents have me in therapy, but the therapist isn't great. The judge chose the therapist for me, and we can't change who I see. So I have to deal with it for at least another 4 months before we're back in court. I'm not supposed to block my mom on my phone even when we've had our call. Next story. Am I the a-hole for divorcing my depressed wife because her depression and depression-induced spending are dragging me down? When my wife, 36 female, and I, 35 male, met, I was in an MBA program, and she was finishing up her certification process to become a nurse anesthesiologist. I was drawn to her drive and optimistic view of the world. We were both young adults, 26 and 27, who saw the world as an endless source of opportunity. We discussed having kids when we were more established in our careers. After graduation, we both went to work. I got a job in consulting, making $200,000 a year with a signing bonus and have continued to grow in my career. My wife was crushing it at her dream hospital, making $150,000 before overtime. We were so happy traveling and enjoying ourselves. We eventually bought our home and were truly living our dreams, until about 3 years ago. My wife had a mental breakdown at home between shifts at the hospital. She was eventually hospitalized for a few weeks. After she came home, we agreed she would take 6 months off to recover, and I would take care of us. Immediately, she started spending an average of $2,000 to $3,000 every other week on traveling with friends and weekend trips. She stopped helping around the house and was constantly out. I completely supported this for the first 6 months. She said it was part of her healing process, and I understood entirely. Through sickness and health, right? Then, the agreed upon 6 months passed, and I asked if she was ready to return to work part-time. This caused her to shut down, so I backed off. Then a year passed, and I revisited a conversation. Another breakdown ensued. I asked if she was ready to consider starting our family and being a homemaker instead of working. We were in a great financial position and didn't need the money. She agreed, and for the last year, we have been trying to have a baby. We have even done fertility testing and been given a "you are both healthy, keep trying." Last week, I was driving her car and dropped my phone. I pulled over to grab it from under the driver's seat and, to my surprise, found birth control pills. I was shocked and turned around on my way to work to confront her. She broke down and called me an abuser for trying to force kids on her. She has never told me she didn't want kids, and I would absolutely never push her. She then started blaming me for her breakdown and said it's my fault she can't work. I then brought up how I've handled 95% of the cooking and cleaning for the last 3 years because I was trying to support her and allow her to heal while she traveled, and racked up a $10,000 credit card bill every month for me to pay off. Since then, she has shut down and refuses to talk to me. I've been sleeping in our vacation house because she says it's detrimental to her mental health to share a space with me, her abuser. I can't shake the feeling that I have been lied to and taken advantage of for years now. I want a divorce, but at the same time, if she is genuinely sick, I don't want to abandon her. Am I an a-hole for even considering leaving my sick wife? I can't shake the feeling that I'm selfish for even considering this. Edit to address common questions. 1. Yes, my wife has been in active therapy for the last 3 years, and I have proof of this. 2. She is not having an affair. Our sex is good to very good. Also, many of these trips include her mother, whom I trust unconditionally. 3. Please stop soliciting me in the DMs. I have no intention of cheating on my wife. 4. I have stayed so long because I genuinely love my wife and want to ensure she is cared for. Even now, after getting so much feedback confirming my feelings, I feel incredibly guilty. I feel that I am responsible for her well-being, and I'm terrified of what her life would look like without me. Not the a-hole. Thank her for taking the birth control, because now you don't have to include kids in a divorce. This, taking the birth control, was huge betrayal, but did him huge favors so he's not stuck with her for life and paying tons of child support too with his salary. Not the a-hole. Don't get her pregnant. Divorce and move on. I totally agree with this. Bro, she's running the biggest scam of the century. First, it's "I need time to heal." Then it's "I can't work." Then it's agreeing to have a baby while secretly taking birth control. She's not struggling, she's strategizing. She doesn't want a partner, she wants a paycheck. Agreed. Guaranteed while she vacations with her friends, she's mocking your gullibility. Last story. Am I the a-hole for unplugging my fiancé's phone, fully charged, to use my own charger when my phone was at 4%? I, 28 male, live with my fiancé, 25 female, and we recently had a disagreement that I'd like some outside opinions on. We have a USB-C charger that stays in the living room. Technically, it's mine, but since we live together, we both use it when needed. A few days ago, her phone was plugged into the charger, but it was already 100%. Meanwhile, my phone was at 4%, and I urgently needed to send an important email or something similar. I don't remember exactly, but it was something time-sensitive. In my rush, I ask her, can I use the charger, while already unplugging her phone to connect mine. She immediately said no. This surprised me, as her phone was already fully charged, and mine was about to die. I had already plugged in my phone by then, so I said, but your battery's full. She got really upset, and we had a brief argument about it. We dropped it at a time, but the issue came up again a few days later. She told me that what I did was rude, and compared it to her watching TV and me changing the channel without asking. I disagreed because if she were actively watching something, I wouldn't just change the channel. This was different. She insisted that it was negotiable etiquette, meaning that it's still rude even if I think it makes sense. According to her, I should have asked, and if she said no, I should have respected that, even though it was my charger and her phone was already at 100%. So, am I the a-hole for unplugging her fully charged phone to charge mine in an urgent situation? Not the a-hole. This is really telling. I'm not saying to run, but lace up the running shoes. I wonder if she's more worried about what OP might see on her phone than the actual charger. Not the a-hole. But does your fiancé like to have the last word in anything and everything no matter what? Are you sure that's something you want to be dealing with for the rest of your life? Usually, yes. Lately, I fear bringing my complaints because of that. Sadly, it wasn't like that for years. 5 together, and I could count on one hand, but lately has become the rule.